Well, I'm here in New York City and I'm going to take a helicopter ride and I'm going to use this 70-200 lens to try to get a really nice shot of the Statue of Liberty. That's my goal. Let's see if I can pull it off. This shoot was a colossal failure. And in this video, I'm going to share with you the 3 biggest mistakes that I made so that you could avoid them next time you're shooting out of a moving helicopter. And even if you never do, well, I think you're going to find this interesting. Oh, but stick around to the end because I'll show you what I was able to cobble together out of my mistakes. Now, before I get into my mistakes, there are a few other things I want to tell you about shooting out of an open-air helicopter. Now, the company I used was Flynyon, Fly New York on. Yeah, kind of clever. The first tip is to never pay full retail price because there's always a sale at Flynyon, or whatever you call it. There's always a sale, and if there's not a sale, well, there's somebody there to sell you, and they are going to be able to make you a deal. Now, it's going to cost you a couple $100s, but prices vary throughout the year and even throughout the day. It's called supply and demand. Google it. Tip number 2, you're going to want to allow plenty of time for your flight because there's going to be forms to fill out, safety videos to watch, and you're going to be sitting around a lot. You have to get fitted for your harness, all of your gear has to be inspected, and completely locked in or tied onto you in some way. Tip number 3 is that nothing can be loose on your body. You can't just pull out your phone and start recording. That has to be on a rig that they'll provide, clamped on super tight and then tied to your body. You can't have anything in your pockets at all, not even ID. And I assume that's because they don't want to be able to identify the body later. But that's just a theory I'm working on. You can't have lens cap. You can't have magnetic filters on the front of your camera. And even the screw-on ones are a little suspect, so call ahead. Oh, and this is important. There's absolutely no changing lenses after you've taken off. Yeah, that one hurt. Now, with those few tips out of the way, it's time to talk about my miserable failures. And the first was to use a 70-200 lens as my one lens. Yeah, that was my biggest mistake. Because I thought I could hand-hold this with active stabilization and get some really good shots of the Statue of Liberty's nose. Well, I was sadly mistaken, and I knew it as soon as I took off. There was just so much wind and movement that there was no way that I was going to get a decent shot zoomed in at 200 millimeters. All I could do is zoom out to 70 millimeters and try to make the best of it. I got my best shots with the iPhone 15 using the normal camera, which is still a very wide lens. Now, I did do a few things right. I shot in 60p so that I could slow down the footage, thinking that would help me. I also had active stabilization on, as well as the stabilization in this lens. But those 3 things didn't compensate for the fact that I could not hold this camera still enough for very long. A telephoto lens was simply the wrong lens to use, especially in light of my second mistake. I never should have used the 180-degree shutter rule. Because it's not really a rule, it's just a suggestion. And this time, I should have ignored that suggestion. Now, normally we use the 180-degree shutter rule so that we can get some natural blur in our shot. So if my hand is moving, well, there'll be a little blur to it so it won't look so stroby. But when shooting out of a moving helicopter, you do not want to emphasize the motion because the motion is not in the Statue of Liberty, it's in the helicopter. And that's something you don't want to show. So here's a shot I got of the Statue of Liberty, and here it is after I've added some stabilization in post. But do you see the problem here? Let's take it very slowly. As I go through, I'm sharp, and then my camera moves, and there's a blur. And it's not from the Statue of Liberty moving, it's from my camera moving. And even though I was able to take out the movement in post, I couldn't take out that blurriness. I had baked it in. Even with the wrong lens, if I had cranked up the shutter speed, I would have had a chance to prevent this. So when you can't keep your camera from bouncing around, the 180-degree shutter rule will ruin your footage, and there's nothing you can do to save it. And that leads me to my third mistake, and that was using an ND filter that had a built-in mist filter on a misty day. So I got double mist. And now for the upside of things, I was not charging a client for this shoot. Yeah, so the only person I was disappointing was myself. And the truth is, I'm easily pleased because I had a great adventure and I learned a lot of things. Oh, and deep down inside, I knew that I could probably cobble something together that would tell the story of both my failures and my successes in shooting the Statue of Liberty. And one of the elements that I needed, though, was music. And that's always easy. I got mine from Artlist. I really like their services. There are a lot of other great services out there. This isn't sponsored by Artlist, but I've always found that I can find what I need from them. But Artlist did say that if I suckered you, got you to sign up for an annual subscription, that they would give you 2 months off if you use my link. And I think I get something out of that as well. Oh, and one last tip, I rarely use an entire song. I usually cut it up quite a bit. So, with the music and my failures and my one success, well, enjoy this video. Well, let me know how I did in the comments, and whether you appreciate learning from my mistakes. If so, I'll try to make more mistakes for you. Hey, thanks for stopping by.